I let my wife's parents use our backyard for their garden. A year later, I wasn't allowed to touch it. It's their space now, my wife said. I stepped into the yard that morning and found a sign that read private property. I pulled it from the ground, took a long breath, and later that day. My name's Eric. I am 42. I've lived in Eugene, Oregon most of my life. This story still makes me feel like I'm losing my mind. I married Carrie 11 years ago. She was funny, kind, patient. We had a good thing. No big drama. We bought a small home with a decent yard. Nothing fancy, but enough space for a grill, a couple chairs, and a patch of grass for our dog, Baxter. We had no kids. That was a choice. We both worked full-time and liked our quiet life. I always thought we were solid. Then last year, her parents moved in. It started with a phone call. Carrie told me her folks, Dale and Marlene, were thinking about selling their house in Klamath Falls and moving closer to us. Just for a while, she said they'll stay in the guest room until they find a new place. I asked how long a while meant. She said, a few months, maybe less. I agreed, because that's what you do for family, right? They moved in late March. Dale's in his 70s. He's one of those guys who thinks he knows everything about everything. Marlene is quieter, but she's sharp and always watching. I kept my mouth shut. Even when Dale criticized how I cut the lawn or when Marlene accidentally reorganized our pantry, I figured it wouldn't last long. About 6 weeks in, they asked if they could use part of the backyard for a garden. It was Marlene's idea. She said it'd be a good way to stay active and help with groceries. I didn't care about the tomatoes or whatever, so I told them, sure, go ahead. I helped Dale lay out 2 raised beds. He made them from scrap wood. We dug up part of the lawn together. At that point, it still felt like a family project. By midsummer, the garden doubled in size. They added more beds, then fencing, then a small plastic greenhouse from Home Depot. I thought, okay, they're enjoying themselves. Fine, let them have it. But then they started acting weird about it. Marlene started snapping at Baxter if he got too close to the plants. Dale started correcting me on how to water. One day, I grabbed a hose and sprayed the tomatoes, and he said, we don't do it that way. We was around, then I noticed Carrie started taking their side in every disagreement. I told her Baxter should be able to roam in his own yard. She said, just let them have their space. It's not a big deal, but it was a big deal because the space wasn't theirs. That fall, Dale bought a prefab shed. He put it in the far back corner and filled it with tools, seed packets, and all his crap. When I told him we'd need to move it when winter came, he said, we'll cross that bridge later. Then winter came. The garden went quiet, but the shed stayed. So did the little solar lights they'd strung across the fence. So did the damn gnome statues. Then one night in January, I came home and saw something that really pushed me. They put up a sign near the edge of the patio garden area. Please keep out. I brought it up to Carrie. She sighed and said, it's just a joke. My dad gets protective, that's all. I said, we can't joke about territory in our own backyard. She just rolled her eyes. By spring, they took over even more of the yard. Dale built a bench under a homemade trellis and called it a meditation spot. Marlene told a friend on the phone it was her sanctuary. It was like I didn't exist. I kept thinking they're temporary. They'll be gone soon, but they weren't. No one was house hunting. No one even talked about moving out anymore. They just settled in like it was theirs. Then came the sign. One morning in April, I let Baxter out. I stood on the porch with my coffee. The sun had barely come up. That's when I saw it. A brand new wooden post driven deep into the ground just before the garden. Hanging from it in bold black letters. Private property, do not enter. I blinked, walked over, touched the sign like it might be fake. It was real, solid, screwed in, carefully painted. I pulled it out, not gently. I yanked it from the ground like it was a dagger. My hands were shaking. Later that day, I waited for Carrie to get home. I didn't hide it. I laid the sign on the kitchen table. She looked at it, then looked at me. You pulled it out, she said like I was the one out of line. What the hell is this? I asked. Private property in our backyard. She rubbed her forehead. Eric, come on. It's just a way for my dad to feel like he has a place. You know how he is. That's not a place, I said. That's our damn yard. I didn't sign anything over. She folded her arms. You've been so controlling about it. You never cared about the backyard before they started using it. Now, suddenly, you have a problem. That was the moment I realized something had shifted. This wasn't about gardening anymore. This was about power, territory, control. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up and stared out the back window. I saw Dale walk into the garden after dark. He looked at the empty spot where the sign had been. Then he shook his head and went into the shed. I didn't care. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I needed to know exactly where I stood because I wasn't about to let two people who didn't pay a dime for this house take a piece of it and call it theirs. That afternoon, Carrie asked if I was okay. I said, "We need to talk about who's in charge of this house." She said, "It's not a dictatorship." I said, "No, but it sure as hell isn't a democracy where your parents get a vote." She didn't answer, just walked away. That night, Dale knocked on our bedroom door. He said, "Can we have a civil conversation tomorrow morning? I'd like to clear the air." I said sure, but I already knew. I wasn't clearing anything. I was about to take it all back. The next morning, I woke up early. Didn't sleep much again. I went downstairs, made coffee, and waited. Carrie was already gone. Left early for work without a word. Just a text. "We'll talk later." At exactly 9 a.m., Dale walked into the kitchen like he owned the place. He poured himself some coffee from my pot without asking. Sat down across from me at the table like it was a damn boardroom meeting. He folded his hands. "Eric, I think we've had a breakdown in communication." I stared at him. "No, dale. I think we've had a breakdown in respect." He smirked like I was being dramatic. "You have to understand, we've spent a lot of time and money on that garden. It's become something special to us, part of our routine, our mental health even. I think it deserves some boundaries." "It's not your land," I said flat out. "You don't make rules on my property." "That's just it," he said, leaning forward. "You keep saying it's your property, but Carrie and you are married. She's the one who invited us. She's made it clear to us that she considers the yard part of our shared family space now." I froze. "What does that mean?" He looked me dead in the eye. "It means we're not going anywhere and we're not giving up that garden. So, if you want peace, you need to accept that." I laughed. It came out colder than I meant. "Let me get this straight. You move in for a few months, take over my backyard, put up a private property sign, and now you're telling me I should accept it." He smiled. "Exactly. That was it." I stood up, walked straight to the garage, opened a storage bin, and pulled out the deed to the house. Black and white, my name, no one else's. I walked back into the kitchen, dropped it on the table. "This is who owns this house. Not you, not your daughter, me." Dale didn't even look at it. He just stood up and said, "You've made your position clear. I hope you don't regret it." That evening, Carrie came home. I didn't give her a chance to get settled. I said, "We need a serious talk. No walking away this time." She nodded slowly. I heard from my dad. He said, "You threatened him." I blinked. "Threatened?" I showed him the deed. "Yeah," she said, arms crossed. "You waved it around like a power move. You're acting like a tyrant." "Tyrant," I said. "You've let your parents take over my house. They don't pay rent. They make rules. They've turned the backyard into some weird, gated community. And you back them up every time." She sighed. "You're twisting it." "No," I said, "I'm seeing it clearly for the first time." Then came the twist I didn't expect. She sat down and said, "They already gave me money, a lot of it last fall.